Desi.com.au, the ultimate Australian website for all the Bollywood entertainment, news and info. Why look anywhere else when you can find it all at Desi.com.au?
India and Australia usher in a new era in bilateral relations, diaspora engagement and tourism as Air India's first non-stop flight to Sydney landed on 29 August 2013 with onward connectivity to other destinations. Indian travellers to Australia can now fly to more than one city on the same ticket, as the carrier will invoke a rule that allows it to hop cities. The national carrier is utilizing the Own Stopover Rights (OSR) on its flights to Australia. OSR is the right to discharge and take on its own traffic that is destined for another city after a stopover. No foreign airline is at present utilizing such rights in India, and Air India is the only Indian carrier to utilize such rights abroad. Air India is operating flights from Delhi to Sydney via Melbourne and flights to Melbourne via Sydney using the state-of-the-art Boeing Dreamliner aircraft. The maiden flight, carrying 200 passengers, senior Indian government officials, including Air India chairman Rohit Nandan, made a grand landing at the Sydney International Airport at 8:10 a.m. on August 30th. Air India's flight received a water gun salute on arrival. Traditional welcome awaited Indian officials and passengers as they disembarked at the airport in Sydney. Celebratory mood was marked with cutting a cake. Air India passengers have the option of a stopover in either Sydney or Melbourne and carry on with the journey on the same booking. A passenger travelling from Delhi has the option for a stopover, say at Sydney, and travel to Melbourne on the same ticket. Passengers from Australia have an excellent advantage of flying late morning from Sydney to reach Delhi same day at 6 p.m. This helps them to connect to various other domestic destinations in India. The flight is only 12 hours long. Another passenger comfort feature is that using new technology, air pressure has been set to 6,000 feet instead of 8,000 feet. India is Australia's largest underserved market. In 2012, around 140,000 passengers travelled between Delhi and Sydney via Asian hubs. Air India's direct service will boost tourism and trade between the two nations. The Indian officials and passengers were accorded a warm welcome by Indian High Commissioner to Australia, Ambassador Biren Nanda, Consul General of India in Sydney, Ambassador Arun Goyal, the Honourable Matt Thistlethwaite, Parliamentary Secretary for Infrastructure and Transport of Australia, and Kerry Mather from Sydney Airport. Australian officials held an elaborate press conference to welcome Air India's inaugural flight.
To have India's major international airline, Air India, bringing a new service to Sydney with 4 direct non-stop inbound flights per week is a huge win for New South Wales. As I mentioned before, our partners in making this happen, Tourism Australia and Sydney Airport Corporation, thank you, Kerry and Andrew, again for the brilliant job that you and your teams have done to make this happen. In the year ending March of this year, 2013, more than 71,000 visitors from India came to New South Wales and they travelled throughout the state and spent more than 3 million nights. The ties between our two economies are very strong, particularly New South Wales and India. I think you'll find that all businesses in India will find New South Wales a very safe and welcoming haven for business and for investment, and our business communities, of course, finds the same in India. New South Wales and India share many common bonds, whether it's in education or finance sectors, tourism, creative services, and of course on the cricket pitch. Air India's decision to schedule 4 direct flights per week to Sydney and only 3 flights a week to Melbourne recognises New South Wales' status as Australia's premier state and international tourism destination. We estimate that Air India's daily Dreamliner service will will add more than 800 seats into Sydney each week, or 46,000 seats each year, with the potential to contribute more than $30 million in new money to the New South Wales economy. Sydney, as we know, is one of the world's most beautiful cities, but we want to make sure that all guests on Air India coming to Sydney get to enjoy our fantastic major events calendar. And just some of the events that we have coming up over the next 12 months, we have the centenary celebration of the International Naval Fleet Review, and the Indian Navy will be here. There'll be 10,000 sailors in Sydney during that week. Australia's largest Aboriginal cultural festival, Corroboree, the world season and premiere of Lion King, the musical, back in Sydney, the spectacle, of course, of Sydney's New Year's Eve, the unique Handa Opera on Sydney Harbour, Baz Luhrmann's world premiere of his musical, Strictly Ballroom, the opening series of Major League Baseball, and, of course, the ICC Cricket World Cup in 2015. Look out. Okay, Regional New South Wales is also offering fantastic experiences from the UNESCO-listed Blue Mountains, only 2 hours from Sydney. We've got alpine skiing in the snowy mountains, pristine beaches, all up and down our coastline, of course, and wonderful rainforest. So it's all here in New South Wales. In fact, in November in 2011, Destination New South Wales opened a new office in India, in Mumbai, and we appointed Mr. Paramjit Bawa as our country manager, and we've been gradually building on our relationships with the Indian travel trade and the media to promote Sydney and New South Wales, and that office is also representing Business Events Sydney to make sure that people know what a great convention and incentive travel reward destination Sydney and New South Wales are. New South Wales has also enjoyed a fantastic relationship with the Indian film industry, and many films have been shot here. See if these ring a bell. From Sydney with Love, Mr. Perfect, We Are Family, and of course, Hey Baby. These were all shot here in New South Wales. We've had a big tradition of hosting great games in New South Wales against India. Of course, most recently the Test match at the Sydney Cricket Ground, where Australian captain Michael Clarke scored an unbeaten 329. Those were the days. We also had the 2020 game out at ANZ Stadium in February, and the One Day International as well. Or who could forget Shane Warne making his international Test debut at the SCG back in 1992. I'm sure some of you will remember that that's when Indians Ravi Shastri with a very young Sachin Tendulkar formed a partnership for 354. Shane Warne only got 1 wicket. Well, you know, things change. So, of course, I do have to remind you that cricket star and Bollywood legend Brett Lee is a New South Wales boy, as are Steve and Mark Waugh. So we're hoping to have a new tradition of great cricket, particularly when the World Cup comes here in 2015. I'm sure that visitors on Air India services will be keen to get up to the beautiful Southern Highlands and Bowral to see the Sir Donald Bradman Museum and, of course, visit the International Cricket Hall of Fame.
The flight augurs well for the Indian diaspora travelling to India, especially the majority Punjabi origin population that can connect easily to destinations in North India. Also, India's Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs and the High Commission of India will hold the 8th Regional Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, November 10th through 12th, 2013 in Sydney. This is the first major diaspora event with the support of the Australia government and the New South Wales provincial government. Air India chairman Rohit Nandan said the flight to Sydney is a milestone for the national carrier and will foster trade and other bilateral relations.
The relationship of Air India with Australia dates back way back to 1956, when the first flight of Air India took off from Bombay and went to Perth. Later on, this flight started flying from Perth to Sydney, later on to Melbourne, and then to Perth alone, and was finally withdrawn in the year 1997 for various reasons. It's really a big day for us in Air India to be back in Australia. During these 16 years, our relationship between the two great nations has grown tremendously. I think Kerry has already spoken about the tourism that has grown between the two nations. Today, about 164,000 people from India visit Australia annually. Australia has become a major academic destination for Indian students, and about 1 lakh students are studying in Australia in various universities, especially being attracted towards the engineering, management and the finance courses of Australia. The trade has grown from 4 billion to 18 billion, and we expect by the year 2016 this trade will grow up to about 40 billion. This flight, I think, is going to be a very major factor in strengthening the relationship between the two countries. We've had a very special relationship with New South Wales. As a matter of fact, I was doing some research on the internet and I saw that when the New South Wales as a colony was constituted way back in 1788, our relationship with India started since then. And New South Wales started supplying coal and then horses to India all through the 19th century. And it's really a coincidence that today when we are back in Australia, the first place that we have touched, we have been able to land at Sydney as the first port of call. And I'm sure that this is again a historic beginning of another century of relationship between our two great countries and the great province of New South Wales. I'm very thankful to the Premier of New South Wales because she's been very active actually in pursuing Air India to come to Sydney first. The Premier had made a visit to the Air India office in Bombay a few months ago. And this sort of proactive approach from any government is quite remarkable for us. And we were extremely impressed. We have already been working on this flight to Australia, but the type of political support that we saw coming from the government of New South Wales actually firmed up our resolve to come to this place. I'm also thankful to the airport of Sydney. They have been pursuing us with remarkable patience for the last 3 years. I think that Mr. Gupta is here and he's been interacting with the officials of the Sydney airport, and it has been a roller coaster ride, I must say, going up and down at times depending upon what our plans were, but finally we were able to make it, and I'm really happy that Sydney has been a constant partner and a great help. We think that Australia is a great destination to be in. From whatever information we have, about 800,000 people travel between India and Australia and vice versa annually. Today these people are traveling through very circuitous routes. They have to go to intermediate stopovers, spend long hours waiting for the connecting flight, and as a result it takes about 20 to 22 hours for a person from any destination in India to reach Australia. With the introduction of this flight, this time will now be reduced and shortened to only about 12 hours, which means a 40% saving in time, and time is valuable today. So I hope that this flight is going to be extremely attractive to people coming both ways from India to Australia and Australia to India. And the best part of this flight is that it is being conducted through a 787, that is the Dreamliner. It is the most modern, the most advanced, and the most sophisticated plane in the world's fleet at the moment. We have started inducting 787s in a big way in Air India. We've been flying them for the last about 8 or 9 months. We started in the month of September 2012, had to ground it in 2013 January because of the FAA directions, and we have started the operations of these flights again in May. It takes about 3 months' time to start a new flight, and as soon as we were able to start flying 787s, that is the Dreamliners, on the 15th of May, the first destination that we thought of was Australia, and I'm happy that today we are here. Carrie has spoken about the Bollywood. She has also talked about cricket. Actually, I was reminded by one of my colleagues in Air India in a function a couple of days back that you'll be happy to know that half of the national team of India consists of cricketers who work for Air India. And therefore, with the arrival of this flight, you can expect more exciting matches between the two nations in the months to come. Today, this is a round-robin flight. We are coming to Sydney 4 days directly. 3 days will be coming via Melbourne. But depending upon the success, the commercial success of this performance of this particular flight. We have grand plans of going to the two destinations separately for all 7 days in the months and the years to come. We hope that this relationship is going to become stronger. It will not only strengthen relationship between India and New South Wales, but it will also strengthen the relationship between India and Australia. I'm thankful to Australia Tourism for the very active interest that has been taken by the Tourism Department of Australia to promote this flight. I was telling Mr. Matt that it is a remarkable thing that the Honourable Minister of Tourism cared to visit my office about a few months back in order to pursue this flight. It was a very unique thing for us because ministers generally expect officers to come to meet them, not the other way around. At least that is the way it is in India. But I'm really very happy that somebody so senior in the ministry, in the government, took so much of interest. And all these things taken together did firm up our resolve to come to Australia, and here we are, Sydney.